Driven Catalyst.
Yeah, girl. Okay, hold on. Let me turn down my mic. Slay. It's a mega slay. Hello and welcome to another Driven Catalyst live stream. I am Riley and it is New Music Friday. So today I listened to two albums. I listened to Blondshell's new If You Asked for a Picture, and then Briston Maroney's Jimmy. I'm going to talk briefly about Blondshell's album, and then we're really going to dive in with Briston Maroney's. Reason for that being, I'm just more familiar with Briston's discography. I have more to say, but I certainly enjoyed both albums. First and foremost about Blondshell, I feel like in life generally there are things, and I mean no tear shade by this, just genuinely, there are things that I go into with a bias because I just already want to love them. I feel like Blondshell is one of those things. I love the aesthetic used, like for the merch, the album art. I think the artist is like cool and fun. So I went into this album basically wanting to love it, and I did really enjoy it. I have notes. Okay, yeah. So one thing that stood out to me immediately was I kept listening to the album, and it reminded me a lot of, or not, I guess vocally, Blondshell as an artist reminds me a lot of one of the artists that was in my college town, someone that I enjoyed the music of. And that artist was particularly inspired by Patti Smith. And I feel like it's weird to say because it's just an artist from my college town, right? But I feel like I'm probably more familiar with them than Patti Smith. But so then when I hear music, I'm like, oh, this reminds me of more than I think, oh, this reminds me of Patti Smith. And so when I listened to the Blondshell album, I kept being like, wow, this is so funny. Like, this reminds me a lot of some of this music I would listen to in college. And then when I looked up and was doing some of the deeper dive behind the scenes on this artist, and I found out that Blondshell is very inspired by Patti Smith as an artist, I was like, oh, that's what it is. It's two different artists inspired by the same, like, sorry, I'm like trying to find the words to describe what Patti Smith is to music and music history, because I know she is huge. And so I'm like sheepish and embarrassed to admit I haven't listened to as much of Patti Smith's discography as I should. But that stood out to me and was funny. My immediate saves from the album were Arms, Event of a Fire was a standout to me, and then Two Times. I have written down the bridge of Event of a Fire was a standout to me. A lot of clever lyrics and humor in Toy. And He Wants Me. I liked the lyrics and the sound of that one a lot. I'm not going to, like I said, dive in too much, but I did make notes of chimey, bright acoustic guitar, very Cranberries-esque, to me at least. Also, moving forward as I continue to speak, because I'm a little bit wary of how I come across in these live streams, I was listening to my favorite, all roads lead back to Caleb Heron, I fear. But I was listening to Caleb Heron's podcast on my drive to work this morning, and in one of the episodes, they were talking about how they were talking about the gatekeepers of talent in life and how the digital age has made kind of having a voice more accessible, which is good. But it also means that everyone has access to putting their work out there more so than what we were historically used to in some ways. And so these gatekeepers of talent, where it had been like record producers that could see the potential in someone and that could see a work before it had reached its full potential and grant access to expertise and collaboration and a team and people that could help build up an artist. We more so now have a culture of people that can just get online and do whatever they want and say whatever they want, which is awesome. It makes it more accessible to be an artist, but he and his guest were also talking about how it can kind of also be not the best, because you kind of just have to show up on the scene and already be arrived and like in your final form in a lot of ways. And it also lends itself to there being a bunch of people that and I quote, hold on, let me get the guest's name. Let me put some respect on the guest's name. Justin, right? Hold on. Justin Tranter. Justin Tranter was saying that it means that there's like a lot of Gen Z online saying that they think they know what the single should have been. And my life flashed before my eyes as I heard them say that, because I was thinking, I hope I never come across like that on my live streams on New Music Fridays. I am truly just trying to put language to something that is so valuable and sacred to me. I by no means think I know anything about this, or let alone know best about it. This is like almost just an exercise in earnestness and evangelism for music. So that, I want to be clear, is my intent with these New Music Friday streams. And I just want to be so clear that I don't think I know anything. I only know excitement, fandom, and I just want to share it. So with that, let's dive into Jimmy from Briston, Maroney. This is a 12-song album. It is 33 minutes long, and it is produced by Briston himself, and Alex Ferrer. Alex Ferrer, I hope I'm not butchering that name. These live streams happen very quickly too, so I don't get to be as careful about pronunciations, looking up how to address people the way I wish I could ahead of time with great carefulness. I'm going to make sure I'm doing everything. I'm going to do it really quick on the spot, but keep it rolling just because these things are important to me. Boom. Okay. Alex Ferrer has worked on Snail Mail, Suki Waterhouse, Indigo D'Souza, and MG Linderman as well, which as well as not the rest of, but a lot of, maybe the rest of, I don't know, Briston Maroney's discography. I could look it up again, but I don't have time for that homework. It's homework I care about but don't have time for. Such is life. Going into listening to the album, what happened was I listened to Jimmy, which is the intro track, and then I realized I think I want more context going into this album. So I looked it up. I read an article from Tinnitus, written by Daryl Sturden, and a quote that stood out to me from it that I thought was beautiful was, "A song cycle about scraping the bottom of mental, social, and emotional barrels and holding on long enough to pull yourself back up and out." And in reading about the background of the album, I gained perspective that a lot of the album is kind of a merging of two worlds that were Briston's growing up when their parents were divorced, and he split time between Tennessee and Florida, I think, and the schooling system and the more formal background and expectations in one place, in contrast to the like more country, beachy, Floridian backdrop for life. And I feel like I did hear that. I don't know if it's just because I read it going into it, and so I almost could see that world building, or if just truly like it's there sonically. I believe in Briston being just that profoundly talented. I do think, like, without reading it, I maybe would have gotten that influence. But so that was the context I got to go into listening to the album with. And my key notes that I have about the album as a whole are that we have this very front bottom Z Hollister music vibe. And I mean that with like astounding amounts of respect. Nothing I love more than a Hollister music vibe. I discovered Briston Maroney because I always have to peacock a little. The song June from Briston Maroney was so important to me my senior year of high school, which would have been 2018. It just ended up being like the soundtrack for my life at that point. And then, of course, Freaking Out on the Interstate, Fool's Gold, Small Talk. Not Fool's Gold. Small Talk has a lyric in it about your attention isn't worth my weight in fool's gold, I think. And those songs were so important to me in college. They still are important to me. I frankly just adore Briston's discography. So I have clever and thoughtful lyricism written down just as notes for Briston's discography as a whole. And then I have written about the album instant classics. There are a couple tracks on this album that I listened to and I thought, okay, I don't know if I've listened to these already as singles and that's why they feel familiar. If they remind me of other songs, like if it truly is like, oh, there's this song I heard shopping in Hollister growing up and it rhythmically or tonally or has production elements that are similar to the song on this album, I like haven't been able to piece together what it is that feels so familiar, but like it feels familiar in this song has gone down in history for me before type way, like just an instant classic. There's a couple songs like that, and so that's a note I made at the top of my notes after listening to the album as a whole. Something that I feel like Briston is so good at that I was reminded of while listening to the album are the tonal shifts. So playing with soft and loud and knowing exactly when to transition between the two, using that transition to punctuate lyrics, punctuate a build, to build to a thought and then drop off and relent. Things like that I feel are common across Briston's discography, and that they really like get their gold star on this album. I already said that. Okay, so moving into the album, we're gonna go song by song. Jimmy, intro. We open with like interview tape talking. I can't tell if it's Briston. I think it is Briston, but I couldn't be sure. And it moves around my head, so it's sort of swelling. There's like the swelling instrumental, and then the interview tape verbal audio moves in its placement. We have the swelling instrumentals into snare drum and guitar. I wrote that it feels very much like watching a documentary about someone who is maybe deconstructing from a cult. And then we like get this like reflective final interview footage and we fade into the credits. Like the song is kind of that to me. It's a great track. It's an intro track that I finished the album and immediately went back to Jimmy and listened to it again. And of course, it's the titular track of the album. Moving on into Tomatoes. This is a single that I definitely listened to prior to the album release. It is also the song that to me is the most standout instant classic. I don't know if that's because it has sort of a rhythm and a rhyme scheme that almost feels like not a nursery rhyme, but almost something that you would do double dutch to, because I know this is a world full of people doing double dutch, jumping rope. But I almost feel like if there's sort of like a rhythmic nursery rhyme type double dutch song limerick, if you will, that mirrors the structure or the rhythm of Tomatoes? I don't know. But if not, the song is just such an instant classic. It just immediately has sort of a rhythm and a build that resonated with me, and I really enjoyed it. From there, we go into Real Good Swimmer. I have loud/heavy rock written down. I have quotes for a lyric. I have patience is a virtue that we learn by force. Something about that just, I thought I really liked that lyric. And I wrote down songs that are something between an army march and a grocery list. I really enjoy. I think of Rainbow Kitten Surprises, How to Friend Love Free Fall. And then there's another one. Oh, it's Moody Orange from Rainbow Kitten Surprise from the same album, How to Friend Love Free Fall. That similarly, I feel like straddles this line between army march and grocery list, where they almost feel like swelling thoughts in someone's head, and like we're having an epiphany, but the epiphany isn't glowing and clear. It's reflective and haunting almost, and kitschy, almost kitschy. I use the word grocery list, and I don't mean kitschy in a reductive way. I mean familiar, maybe, and resonant for many, relatable for many. You know, souvenirs are kitschy, but they are what they are because they have wide appeal. I mean army march and grocery list in a relatable way. So, moving on, Better Than You, I have marked immediately as an immediate save. Hollister Shopping Music from back in the day. This must have been the first track that I was like, oh, it's giving Hollister, which again is always an accolade to me. I loved what Hollister had going on. Rhythm, yes, okay. So this too was the first track that I wrote down. Okay, this is like something I know of from Briston that I'm finding it in this album, and I'm realizing that I hold that pattern in high regard from Briston. And it's got the rhythm, build, and then relent used to structure music. Specifically, I feel like the choruses do that a lot in Briston's discography. And it always just really resonates with me. I wish I could put a finger on it. Let's look at the lyrics for Better Than You, though, and see if I can remember the way it feels. Or you know what? Let's go ahead and do Freaking Out on the Interstate. Me pronouncing the G when I know full well it's freaking out. Yes, okay. So, like, you could almost go through the meter of, I'm sorry, I haven't been myself. Something's got me down. What it is, I cannot tell. I won't be satisfied with anything I've earned. Then we go here. This is what I would call the relent part. So it builds. It's dun-dun-dun-dun. I'm not going to sing it. It's embarrassing. But you know what I mean? And then we build, and then the relent, almost like the swing back musically to me. I don't know why I'm using... Does that make sense, though? Like, does what I'm saying make sense? But I almost feel like it relents, like it swings back. And we go into... Sorry, I lost my place in the lyrics. The relent swings back. Fear is just a part of love, and one thing I've found, and then this is the true drop off to me. So we build, swing back, and then almost like we drop, and love is what you deserve. Boom. I hope that makes sense, because I feel like that pattern, that build and rhythm is used a lot across his discography in a way that I adore. And it was really noticeable to me in Better Than You. Moving on into Poor Things. Poor Things is another song I finished the album. Hold on, my chair has sunk while talking. Poor Things is a song I went back and listened to immediately again after finishing the album. It's a softer rock song. There is a break in the rhythm at the lyric "Drive Through My Hometown." And I wrote that it feels almost hoppy, like country. I went back and listened to it. I don't know that I agree with my initial take, but that was definitely me, I think, putting myself in this world again. Like, something about the delivery of that lyric and the sonically what's happening at the same time did feel true to the album description that I was reading. I could almost imagine myself window down on a beachy sort of back road in Florida, like listening to this song. I felt like I had arrived to the world that I was promised in the album description or in the article I read prior to. And I really liked Poor Things. Moving on into track... Oh man, I haven't even pulled up the album yet. I'm just going based on notes, but that's how you know I took pretty good ones. I really like the album. Track 6 has an explicit title, but I'll give you a hint. It starts with the word bull, or the prefix bull. And I have quotes written down. I'd stay here forever, but I'd leave here tomorrow if the option arose. And I remember listening to this track for the first time and thinking, I really like songs that have lyrics that are about contrast and are about like a negotiation with oneself almost. The song that really comes to mind when I say that is Courtney Barnett and Kurt Vile. Courtney Barnett, Kurt Vile's Peepin' Tomboy, or Peepin' Tom, just from Kurt Vile, I think. Then they do it together. And the intro to that song lyrically is like a negotiation with oneself. Like, I don't want to change, but I don't want to stay the same. I don't want to go, but I'm running. I feel like similarly, track 6 on Jimmy from Briston Maroney has a similar negotiation with oneself, and the lyrics build, and it's about contrast, and it's about discovery, kind of. I liked it a lot. Next, track 7 is Human. I have it marked as an immediate save. I have Loud Start written down, rockier track. Plays with moments of softness and outrage in contrast with each other. Oh, and then I wrote, I'm sick to my stomach about, and then I quoted the lyrics, how could you be human but hurt me like you weren't? How dare you be human and love me like I wasn't? Wow. Like, just sit with that. That's another thing. I know I said Briston has such clear and clever and thoughtful lyricism. There are so many great mic drop lines in songs. There are so many songs. Highway. Is it Highway? Freeway. Freeway by Briston Maroney. Oh, it's right there in the lyrics now that I'm thinking of them. I have so many of his lyrics committed to memory because I think they build beautifully and have just, I don't know, just such a beautiful way of saying things. The consider this my confession, your love's my obsession, go ahead and sentence me to life. Are you kidding me? Thank you, Briston. Literally, not literally. Thank you so much. I just didn't need to use the word literally, and it felt very Gen Z Valley Girl, and I wanted to cut myself off. Not that there is anything wrong with Gen Z Valley Girls. Let's actually pour one out for them right now. Respect. Moving forward, The View is the next song. This song is actually all about Whoopi Goldberg and Rachel Ray. Who's on The View these days? Has Rachel Ray ever been on The View? I don't know. No. I have written down for this, in moments the album goes from the grungier garage indie rock I associate with Briston, and then in moments things get quieter. I feel the sense of the countryer and the beachier tones. That, I guess, was just the moment I first noticed and wanted to write down that dichotomy was happening across the album. And it came up while I was listening to The View. So if I recall correctly, I'm pretty sure The View is one of the beachier tracks. I'll skim it real quick. No, okay. So it's one of the rockier tracks, but what I remember about listening to it and why I wrote this down, I think, is because some of the guitar in the beginning of The View felt like the almost beach movie music. Does that make sense? The way the guitar, that felt like almost a beach movie, and I think that's when I was like, okay, there's moments of country, there's beachier tones. Like, I'm trying to build this world, or I'm trying to appreciate this world that has been built. Moving on into, now this one was a countryer track. Land of Light was an immediate save. I love a folksy, bright country song. This is that. And then the depth of the bass I have written down feels very warm. I feel, no, this is one of the moments where you're going to have to walk with me. I may be being annoying. Can we hold space for that? I wrote, there's a slight vocal mod on it. And like the effect of it, I think, is that it makes it sound almost like one of those classic tin microphones is being used, but it's not so tinny. It's not at all. But it almost just drew attention to the fact that, like, I feel like I was hearing a voice through a microphone, which in effect, it put the voice like more centrally in my ear to me, I guess, and it made the song feel more intimate. Listen to it. That's Land of Light, one of my favorites from the album. Let me know if I'm onto something. That was the note I wrote down. Again, just sort of an attempt to write down what I felt like I was experiencing, what I feel like might have been the intention and impact of it. That was what I detected about the vocals on that track. Hold on. Okay, next is DNA. It's been a minute since I've given you a track number. DNA is track 10. Okay, so I've written down 20 seconds in. The tone of the track feels so right for its place on the album. So this track is about 3 songs out from the end, and I could just almost put myself in the time and space of like seeing Briston live or being at any concert live, and this song plays, and I've had we've seen a phenomenal set already, but it's not over yet. That's kind of how this track sounded to me, and it just felt like it fit exactly where it was supposed to on the album. Again, I'm not trying to be like, this one is definitely supposed to be the single, or you should reorder this. I just feel like it's something I noticed about it and enjoyed about it. Feels like the show's wrapping up and we've still got some good times left in us, is what I wrote down. In line. Okay, yeah, I wrote in quotes in line, and then I have a note 1:10 is the timestamp. Or 1:10. Sorry. 1:10. Sorry, I feel like I'm like saying numbers wrong. But I wrote Briston vocals, that's my guy. This is a quintessential Briston track in my opinion. Love it. Timestamped 1:47. It softens to acoustic guitar. Kind of just making a note again of this back and forth almost of having sort of a grungier rock sound and then going back to the acoustic, and that being like a fun tonal shift. Sunsetter, this is the second to last track on the album. I have We Open with Drums written down. I have 25 seconds in, time stamped for the guitar. Not many notes about what I mean by that, but I'm sure you can listen to it and figure it out. I'm sure it's just exceptional guitar playing. And I have written down for Sunsetter, this song is an instant classic. Another album, I feel like Group Love. I was listening to a lot of Group Love in the period of time that I I feel like I kept flashing back to, and I couldn't tell if I was just flashing back to the era in my life that I felt like when I was reading the article Briston was talking about in their own, or if it was more of like I was like listening to a lot of like beachier group love type music in this era, and it kind of this mix of rock, garage indie, and beachier, cleaner, brighter, country-ish, folksier-ish music, and I was detecting like an actual tonal comparison. But that's something I would say as well, is that it's a little group lovey. Shark Attack is a song that stands out to me that I was listening to a lot in that era, that I feel like almost like I could throw them on a playlist together. I have written down Sunsetter is an instant classic. And then finally, Be Yourself is the final track on the album. The rhythm and choices of what lyrics to repeat, what lyrics to yell, what drops off after, what we punctuate with loud instrumental choices, what we soften on, and when voice mod shifts. Not changes, but shifts, kind of just the way the voice is sitting in our ears. They all just feel really like intelligent choices to me with Briston's music. I'm sure a huge part of that is, I'm sure it's in part both Briston and the producer Alex Farrer that Briston works with. So really just want to put respect on both names there. And, yeah, I'm so excited. I really am such a fan of Briston Maroney. That being said, it had slipped in my mind we were getting an album today, and I was thrilled and so excited to listen to it when I realized that was something I was going to be able to cover for New Music Friday. So I certainly enjoyed myself, and I am going to be giving this album a much more thorough listen. Or it's going to get way more play for me personally. I can already tell. So that is Jimmy from Briston Maroney, a song cycle, again to quote Daryl Sturden, a song cycle about scraping the bottom of mental, social, and emotional barriers and holding on long enough to pull yourself back up and out. My favorite tracks were Better Than You, Human, Land of Light, and I have written down Sunsetter is an instant classic, just like Tomatoes. So do yourself a favor, go listen to Jimmy from Briston Maroney, as well as just the whole Briston Maroney discography has my stamp of approval. And be sure to listen to Blondshell's new record as well. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope to see you on Monday when we dive in with some graphics. This is Driven Catalyst live stream. Goodbye.